You're still watching Sunday Express. Now, media freedoms are anchored by law, quoting Article 37 that allows association and speech. But in recent weeks, media practitioners have found themselves risking their lives to be the guard dog and watchdog of society. Who is going to bail the cat when it comes to brutality meted out on journalists? As we set the tone for tonight's conversation there on media safety, let's have a listen in to the president of the Kenya Editors Guild, that is Zubeida Kananu.
Namna ambavyo tulitangaza na kuafikiana tarehe 24 kutakuwa na maandamanaji kote nchini, kwa sababu tumeona kwamba ndio lugha wanaelewa. Hatufai kukabiliwa sisi kama wanahabari kwa mtutu wa bunduki. Sasa mbona wanaonekana kwamba wanatishika, wana wasiwasi, wana uoga, ndio sababu wanataka kutunyamazisha, ilhali sisi tunafanya kazi yetu. Tumeona vyombo vya habari vikilengwa, sio tu wanahabari peke yake. Tunadai haki. Mbona mnakataa kulipa pesa ambazo mnadai vyombo vya habari?
So come Wednesday, media professionals are going to be taking to the streets to actually protest police brutality that has been meted upon them and on them over the last few weeks as they continue delivering on their mandate as watchdogs and guard dogs of society, sometimes even a reflection of society itself. But as we're working towards getting redress on that particular angle, what of the scars that we have borne in our line of duty? What of the scars that remain unseen? We're talking about mental, emotional. So tonight we're looking at the need to have psychosocial support among journalists, and to take us through that conversation is none other than Nchevere Murioki, who is a counseling psychologist and mental wellness consultant. Thank you very much for your time.
Asante.
Now, we have already set the tone from a psychologist's point of view. Do you think journalists at this point should feel safe or not safe while executing their mandate?
Thank you. Yes, they need to feel safe, and on the same breath, they need to understand and know what they need to do so that they can be able to address their psychological and social requirements at the same time as they deliver on their mandate and their duty to inform citizens and people about their well-being, and there's also many other things that are happening in our country. Yep.
Now, psychologically speaking, when someone is, a witness to violent crimes, or even they have been victims of violence, what from a psychological aspect do they go through, other than the physical hurt, from a psychological point of view? Make us understand that.
First and foremost, our brains are made and created in such a way that they have got internal ability or systems that enable us to deal with trauma, to deal with pressure, to deal with distresses at certain levels and degrees. When it surpasses that, then we are unable to cope. We are unable to manage. In other words, we are not in charge, and we are out of control. Now, at that space, we have lost the battle of self or internal control mechanisms that each and every individual has. Now, when that happens, it affects the prefrontal cortex. Now, in this part, this is where thinking processes are made. This is where memory is stored, and this is where first and immediate decisions are centered, and lastly, this is where remembrance is positioned. So when this is affected, then the person is made, or the person becomes unable to deal with all these things that they have seen, or the stresses, or the frightening issues or situations they have encountered, and definitely they become even unable to address themselves, because First, we need to be able to handle ourselves and then be able to deal with our relations, our workers, and other people.
So from a psychological point of view, it would actually reflect on the effectiveness to deliver on one's work and even in one's line of life, so to speak.
Absolutely.
But then what do we do to show up capacity? Because the truth is, journalists have to be journalists. That is what they're called to do. Is there maybe, how can we build capacity for journalists when it comes to, guarding ourselves from going down that rabbit hole?
There are two aspects of that.
Yes.
Number one, psychosocial support for journalists will appear in two aspects. Aspect number one is the preventive nature, and number two is curative. When we talk of preventive awareness, we are talking of whereby these people in the front line are taught measures that they need to do to reduce risks so that they do not suffer developmental health conditions that end up affecting them. So when they are taught that, they need to be taught another thing. In that aspect of preventive, that's when now they are taught about their safety. This safety is about mental safety, that is the psychological safety. They are also taught about the physical safety. Now, when I am affected mentally or psychologically, I may not be able to deal with the physical aspect. Number two, they need also, on the preventive aspect, they need also to be informed and taught about awareness. This awareness is not about us, it's about I. How do I respond to pressure? How do I deal with provocation? What is my capacity? What is my threshold? How far can I go? How far can I go? Can I handle? Now, that is all about awareness. This awareness is not for anyone else. Am I in a state where I need, as a journalist, to flight?
That is takeoff.
Take off.
Yes.
Do I, or am I in a space where I need to think before I even take that picture? That is aspect number two. Number three, they need to be taught about regarding all self-care.
Self-care.
Now, this self-care is to know that besides everything else, there is me.
So you come first.
At all times and all costs.
Your security
It's duty
comes first.
Number one.
Yes.
It is duty, yes. I need this money, yes. But there's no me without me. So I need first of all to know how safe have I taken.
So we need awareness.
Yes.
But then the question is there room for dialogue when it comes to matters of violence? Because, can we talk ourselves out of violence from a psychological point of view?
Yes, by knowing how to problem solve. What is my reaction, speed, and space? One thing that we need to understand, violence is meted to us by other people. And before it becomes violent, it is started with agitation. And you could see my ability to read the situation I'm in and my ability to know how first do I react enables me to become.
But often journalists are not agitators. They're actually there to record, the incidents, because what we are playing currently on our screens there happens to be a press conference that was called by one of the parties, and our very own journalists ended up getting hurt. So we are there executing our mandate, but then we find ourselves vulnerable to violence. Then, as we've talked about, we need to be self-aware of the situation and also our capacities from a psychology point of view. do you think it's the high time that we instituted psychosocial support within the media value chain? Because, I mean, we still continue working, isn't it? What's your take on that?
When we talk of violence, it has crossed the line of normal reasoning. I am charged with knowledge, awareness, comprehension of the magnitude of the space I am in. Let's be honest with each other. My safety comes first, despite the fact my duty calls me to be in the front line. So as I go to the front line, I must have put into my mind what are my possible options when things get out of hand. Number two, I need to be able to read the mood of my environment. Mm-hmm. As much as we talk about journalists, and it is good work they do to inform us, the responsibility of care has always been on the individual. So when I say that, I know when is my right time to take cover, to run away, to protect myself, and that is when my intuition comes key. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Indeed. Now, it seems we are running out of time, and this is a conversation we'll continue having, especially in the coming weeks there, after it has already been confirmed by the president of the Kenya Editors Guild, that is Zubeida Kananu, last week, saying that the media is going to be out demonstrating on freedom of speech, looking at police brutality. A majority of journalists for the last 2 weeks have been victims of police brutality. We're going to keep addressing this and also looking at why we need that psychosocial support in our newsrooms there. My colleague just mentioned that, you see, the way the newsroom has been coined, usually we'll not have time to seek that, but it's something that we need to institutionalize. We've been speaking to Nchebere Murioki, who is a counseling psychologist and mental wellness consultant, taking us through this conversation. And my take home is that safety begins with me as an individual. Now we cross over to the sporting arena with Karen Kibet, but not before we have our first, or rather a quick break before sports.